Hey friends, welcome back to Vlogmas day 10. Today I'm sharing with you how to transfer an image onto wood with Mod Podge. So this is the image that I'm using, and it is just printed with a laser printer, and I am just cutting down all of the pieces. So this project really got to me. It was not my favorite project, and you'll kind of see why. So this shape was a heart, so I'm trying to cut as close to that heart as possible. If your image has words on it, or if you want to make sure that it looks like it's supposed to, make sure you reverse your image before you print it out. I had some overlap in my heart here, so I'm just trying to figure out where I need to cut it so it lines up the right way. Erin, are you helping with my voiceover today? Thumbs up for Erin. Once I got it all lined up, I was just placing it on my sheet of wood where I wanted it. This is just a piece of plywood that I painted white with acrylic paints. And then I'm going to add Mod Podge to the top of the paper. So I am measuring the sides to make sure that the heart is going to be like equal distance, and it's going to be placed in the center, and everything is kind of where I want it to be. But like, spoiler alert, I end up messing the heart up when I flip it over, so I have to kind of do it all over again. I spent a lot of time lining it up. Really, what I should have done is had it flipped over so it would be the correct way when I transferred it, but instead I was measuring it from the I guess the top side instead of the bottom side. I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know. Like I said, this project really got to me. They can't all be winners, I guess. They can't all be super easy. So I just marked where I wanted to place this when I flipped it over with some chalk, and I did end up kind of going back with a pencil because the chalk was a little bit hard to see. So I marked those spots, and then I was good to go. So I'm just using Mod Podge that I had around, and it was kind of old, so you can see like a lot of the glue like was chunky and not the way it was supposed to be, but I had enough to kind of get through the project the first time. I just tried to avoid getting those chunks, moved them out of the way. After I put an even layer on top of my paper, you have to kind of flip it over and line it up on your board. The paper now is wet because it is covered in glue, so it's really flimsy and kind of hard to handle, so you really need to be really careful, and there's really no room for error here. Like, once you kind of line it up, you kind of just have to go with where it's going to go. And I think what made this project so hard for me was the fact that I was using words. If it was a picture like I'd seen a lot of people do, transferring pictures onto wood with this method, maybe it wouldn't have been so difficult for me, but since it was words and I really wanted to make sure that they were lined up and straight and matching, it really got to me. So I'm just using a card to kind of smooth it out and make sure all the bubbles are pressed down. I really didn't have a problem with bubbles very much, but if you find that your paper is bubbling up, just kind of press it down with a card and you should be good to go. And I am just repeating the process here with the heart. So I'm starting with the top of the heart. Again, I think what I should have done was start with the bottom of the heart and then line the top of the heart up with the bottom of the heart. When I do it over again, I do it that way. But here I am trying to flip it over and line that up, and this is where everything goes wrong. So I just kind of lay it down and I'm like, no, that's not right. So I try to peel it up and play with it again. And every time I peel it up, little bits of ink are sticking. And yeah, it's just a mess here. So I'm still trying to line it up, and I'm just playing with it too much. I really should have just put it there and left it alone, but I was really trying to line it up and get those words kind of perfect and straight, and then I get like a wrinkle in it. And yeah, again, I think if it was a picture, this kind of stuff might add kind of more character to it, but because it's words and you need to read it and it needs to be legible, see, now it's pulling up already. Yeah, it just wasn't really working out for me, this project. So you let it dry. I let it dry overnight, and you put a wet washcloth on it and cross your fingers and hope it all works out. So I let it sit for about 5 minutes. I think, again, it wasn't quite wet enough. And then I am just kind of rubbing all of the top layer paper off. I'm just rubbing the paper off kind of any way I want to at this point. It's kind of difficult to know how much to rub off because there's a very fine line between rubbing the top layer of paper off and then getting to the ink and then rubbing the ink off. I already am discouraged at this point because that unconditional, the first word on the right, is where that paper pulled up, and I can see that the A is messed up there, and I know that I need to do something to fix this project already, that it's going to be a problem. And I'm just kind of rubbing as much of this paper off as I can. There are pieces where more of the words are a little bit more illegible and you can't read them. And I was just kind of like, let me get this paper off the best I can and see where this is going. I also realized after I got all of the paper kind of rubbed off that the heart was slightly crooked. So I knew at this point that this was just, I had to get the paper off and reassess and figure out a new plan for this project. So here it is after I got all of the paper rubbed off of the heart. I rubbed the little heart on the bottom a little too much and it pulled off, and again you can't see a lot of those words. And I found that when the paper was still a little wet, it kind of looked really dark and vibrant and great, but once everything dried, you could kind of see the bottom layer of paper through it. I mean, maybe it's just because I did it that I noticed it so much more, but it's not completely transparent. I thought because my board was white and the paper was white, maybe that would make it a little less noticeable, but I could notice it. And also kind of as the paper dried, it seemed patchy in places, so be aware. So this is my second go at this. What I ended up doing, take two, was just covering the heart in paint and realigning it with those kind of second thoughts that I had, putting the bottom part of the heart on first and the top part. And I also went line by line when I rubbed the paper off this time. I felt like when I rubbed it kind of just all over, it was hard to know, like, did I get this spot all the way? Did I miss a spot? And it kind of had that patchier look. So I thought going line by line might help that a little bit. But again, when it's wet, it looks like it's off and you got it all done, and then as it dries it gets a little bit patchier, so you kind of go back bits and pieces. But at least at this point I knew where I had gone already and what I had left to do. So I know this is kind of a long video and I'm doing a lot of talking, but I really wanted you guys to see how this project worked out and kind of how I troubleshooted it when I ran into problems, because I've seen this tutorial kind of all over the place at this point, and I just wanted to show you, like, I mean, it's fixable. You can fix it. Everything's fixable. You just have to stick with it. I know it's kind of like a bummer, like bringing the party down, but you know, thanks for sticking with me. So here I am kind of rubbing back in those extra places where I felt like it was a little bit patchier. And here it is all finished. I just cut a sign, I mitered a sign and stained it and attached the back with a nail gun, and that's how it ended up looking. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, you can find more from us here. Make sure you guys subscribe so you can follow along. Give it a big thumbs up. Let me know down in the comments, how was the final project? Am I being too hard on myself? What did you guys think? Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye.